Hello, human. I want you to listen to me. You and I, and we belong to the same family. We call it the universe. We share the same story, and we will build a commune future. The future of where we belong, the future of the space which is holding us and protect us, the power of our mother, the earth. Let's burn a few steps. Let's travel back in time and pass directly about 10 billion years after the Big Bang. This time our planet appears. The sun was already there. Earth was the result of collisions and mergers of gigantic bodies. Let's keep moving forward and stop at 4.45 billion years ago. When the Earth's atmosphere appears, we can see now the traces of our origins, clouds, volcanoes, the formation of water between 400 and 700 years later, present in the atmosphere as a vapor, condenses and precipitates on the surface of the Earth, and shape the oceans and seas. The Earth's water cycle is a process of constant renewal. Rivers, seas, oceans, waterfalls. There is always the same quantity of water on Earth. Everything is linked. Everything exists for a purpose. Water is related to air. Closely, we see under the clouds the source of the life. The oxygen we breathe. The algae are the source of the oxygen on Earth. This creature that tint the surface of the oceans produces 70% of this gas which we can't live without. The evolution of life in the oceans and seas will then accelerate. After a while, then it'll take the appearance and disappearance of species. Earth start living. The green nature too. It took more than 4 billion years for it to make forests. Trees are vital. As the biggest plants on the planet, they give us oxygen, store carbon, stabilize the soil, and give life to the world's wildlife. They have inherited from those minuscule cyanobacteria the magical power to capture light's energy. They store it, feed off it, turning it into wood and leaves. So, the soils are formed to give birth to a new ecosystem. Out of waters, the forests. Looking at it beyond our narrow perspective, forests provide habitats to diverse animal species. They are home to 80% of the world's terrestrial biodiversity. Forests are habitats to millions of animals and support numerous ecosystems. About 90% of all Earth's species live in forests. Animals. All live in the forests or within the rivers and streams in forest areas. Each animal species is valuable and contributes to the balance of different ecosystems. The forests are protected by animals. They allow them to develop. Every ecosystem on Earth needs animals. Biodiversity allows humans to survive. What about the human in this story? Where are we placed? And how did we manage to take place in this organization? The human, also called the Homo sapiens, the wise human, is very recent. He is around 7 million years old. You benefit from a fabulous 4 billion-year-old legacy bequeathed by Earth. You are recently taking a good place here. But you've changed the balance of the world. Despite your vulnerability, you've dominated every territory, like no other species. After 180,000 nomadic years, humans no longer depended on hunting for survival. They choose to love in wet environment. Humans turn to navigators. The only energy at humane's disposal was provided by nature and the strength of their bodies. The only objective became taking from the earth only the strictly necessary. For a long time, there was a balance between us and our nature. The economy was a natural alliance. The earth feeds people, clothes them, provides for their daily needs. They found the energy and production in animals. Agriculture was the real revolution of the humankind. Developed about 8,000 years ago. It gave birth to cities and civilizations. Humans harnessed the energy of animal species and plant life. They learned to adapt the grains that are the yeast of life. Humans shaped the land. The modern agriculture and the toxic pesticides speed into the air, soil, plants, animals, oceans. They penetrated the heart of cells, similar to the basic cell that shaped all forms of life. That's where uniformity appears. The nature lost her freedom. Animals, plants, trees. Human curiosity continues to develop. The discovery of fossil energy will mark the path of the economy. With the increase in population, quickly, we are witnessing the birth of metropolises and big cities. Today, half of the world's 7 billion inhabitants live in cities. The exploitation of energy, the earth supplies to humane genius, the manpower of millions of immigrants, the unbridled power of oil. Agriculture becomes an industrial means. The machine replaces the human. Tractors, cars, standardization, and the increase in the quantities of goods allows the installation of factories. Everything we do, from the food we eat to the electricity we use, affects the world around us now. But it wasn't always that way. The Industrial Revolution changed the way that we created everything, from food and energy. Industrial factories are major contributors to air pollution. The amount of toxic gases that factories release into the air increases health and environmental damages. In factories, toxic materials and gases, like carbon dioxide and methane, are burned and pumped out into the atmosphere. Carbon dioxide and methane absorb radiation from the sun and, therefore, affect the temperature of the planet directly. Human activities continue to upset the ecological balance. From the air, at the sea, waste rejected by factories, and maritime transport. In all, we threaten biodiversity. This fire, this results in air pollution, is nature's answer. We witnessed this fire. Nature calls for help. More and more wildfires encroach on major cities. In turn, they exacerbate global warming. As the trees burns, they release carbon dioxide. The system that controls our climate has been severely disrupted. The elements on which it relies have been disrupted. Right now we're facing a man-made disaster of global scale. Our greatest threat in thousands of years. Climate change. If we don't take action, the collapse of our civilizations and the extinction of much of the natural world is on the horizon. Time is running out. The planet is surviving. The air, the oceans continue to be polluted. The forests are burning. The biodiversity is menaced. But we have to end this catastrophe. We are the decisions makers. We are the solution. Climate change and the global warming, for centuries, always had an impact on a small scale. The city, named the urban heat island. Algiers, the city that is no exception to this phenomenon.
The islands affect human health and it affects energy consumption. Those two things alone are enough to drive worldwide interest.
When we build an urban area, we're replacing the vegetated surface and also the soil surface with this impervious surface like the paving material and the building material. By doing this, we're basically warming the urban areas, and this will generate a temperature difference, and that's what we call the urban heat island. We find out that the urban heat island is affected by several factors. The first factor will be the surrounding ecological context, And then will be the size of the city. When talking about size, we mean both the area of the city and also the population size of the city. And then will be the shape of the city and also the development patterns of the city.
We used a variety of satellite data, both land surface temperature data from MODIS and also impervious surface data from the Landsat satellite. Impervious surface data essentially tells us how much building material is on the land surface in order to study the urban heat island. The urban heat island is much larger if you convert a forested area into an urban area, and this is because the urban heat island is a relative measure. So urban areas and forests are much warmer than the surrounding landscape than they are in deserts, for example, because the surrounding landscape is already warm. I think the general public should be interested in urban heat islands because of the fact that it's where most of the people live, and in the next 50 years we're going to see 80% of the global population living in cities. And the urban heat island matters for everything from health, like asthma and heart conditions, to how much heating and air conditioning you need to use to cool or heat your living space.
We have upset the Earth's climatic balance. All eyes are on the poles, where the effect of global warming are most visible. It's happening fast, very fast. The Arctic ice cap is melting under the effect of global warming. The ice cap has lost 40% of its thickness in 40 years. The warming of polar oceans has powerful implications for organisms living there. And for us, polar sea ice helps regulate Earth's climate. White ice reflects more of the sun's energy back into space than does dark water. Without sea ice, Earth would absorb more solar radiation. Is excessive exploitation of our resources threatening the lives of every species? Climate change accentuates the threat. By 2050, a quarter of the Earth's species could be threatened with extinction. In these polar regions, the balance of nature has been disrupted. Around the North Pole, the ice cap has lost 30% of his surface area in 30 years. But as Greenland becomes rapidly warmer, The fresh water of a whole continent flows into the salt water of the oceans. Greenland's ice contains 20% of the fresh water of the whole planet. If it melts, sea levels will rise by nearly 7 meters. Oceans and seas cover 70% of the Earth's surface. They not only serve as the planet's largest habitat, but also help to regulate the global warming. Climate change is altering the ocean. The oceans are getting warmer because of the greenhouse effect. Higher temperatures threaten delicate ocean life. But also, the global warming causes the ocean acidification. Seawater absorbs CO2 from the atmosphere, which lowers its pH and results higher acid content. This reduces the concentration of calcium carbonate, which makes it difficult for species to live. The cost of our actions is high. Others pay the price without having been actively involved. It's too late to be a pessimist. We need to act fast. We have hundreds of readily available solutions to save the Mother Earth. And having back the harmony between humans and nature. The rule become to let the forests breathe, making place to waters and trees in cities. Let's be responsible consumers. Thinking eco-friendly. By developing the renewable energy sources instead of the fossil energy sources. Everything on Earth is linked. The Earth and the energy renewable sources too. The sun, the wind, ocean's waves. All we have to do is stop drilling the earth and start looking to the future. All we have to do is to cultivate the nature. It's time to come together. What's important is not what's gone, but what remains. We still have forests, rivers, oceans, thousands of thriving species. We all have the power to change. So what are we waiting for?